Howdy, y'all. Today we'll be talking. This isn't an ink made in Texas. Well, anyway, we'll be talking about Montblanc. I have to be a little careful. I'm still saying Montblanc. Montblanc, without the K. I'll get there. Montblanc Toffee Brown. I'm always a little careful when tilting these bottles because with Montblanc, what's that? That iron gall ink. The blah 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 blue. Sorry. I once tilted the bottle and ink just came out. So I was a little careful. Anyway, this is an ink by Montblanc. It has the white star on there. Of the Montblanc inks I own 4: burgundy red, oyster gray, this brown, and the midnight blue. That's the iron gold ink. I like this one best. The iron gold ink is very nice, but I think this one is a really nice brown. So not a reddish brown, but a brown. Very decent shading, which I like a lot. I think that's very nice. Flows well, works well. I've never had any issues with it. Easy to clean, and I think it's just an overall nice brown color. So today we'll talk about this. There's not a whole lot more I can tell you. You get 60 milliliters for, I think I paid €13.95, so it's not exactly cheap, but it's not 15 milliliters either. It is a decent amount, and it's just a very nice brown. So I'm going to do the writing sample, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so there we go with the Inkcyclopedia entry for Montblanc Toffee Brown. It actually, on the underside of the bottle, I just saw, says Encre Caramel. Caramel is French and also Dutch for toffee. Just so you know, I thought I'd offer a linguistic interlude. Let's do some fine writing. Usually I do the quick brown fox here. Today I thought I would just write the name of the ink. No. If I'm going to do medium, I should grab a medium nib. After all, I don't think it's necessarily useful to see all the letters of the alphabet in a given ink. If you do think so, then just let me know, but this is a little shorter and it doesn't usually, I cannot put the sentence on one line, so I have to create 2 lines. I thought this would be a bit more economical. Maybe you disagree, just let me know. Montblanc Toffee, well anyway, Brown. Toffee Brown is a nice dark brown. I enjoy it, especially when it's wet. When it dries up, as you can see here, I think it loses a bit of its appeal. That's the case with quite a few inks, unfortunately. Has some really nice shading, I think. See the nice light and dark patches here and there. It's probably my favorite brown. If I am to choose a brown and it's not StephenBrown, then usually it's this ink. This was a joke. There is no ink called StephenBrown. Sorry. We'll return to those. But first, let's try and do some flexi writing. Railroading. Just squeezing some ink into the feed. So beware, this is highly saturated because I added some ink to the feed. Try to add some line variation here. This is a particularly hard nib, so that it's not going to do a whole lot. How are we doing on drawing there? Looks good. I'll add a second pass of ink. Return to that in a second. Broad. Try to do some different scripts here. In this pen too, even though it doesn't have the most flexible nib, you do see a lovely bit of shading. I really enjoyed that. And finally, italic. Again, some really nice shading. Okay. It's just a little wet. Strange to confuse the two, but do a bit of bold writing. I really like the intensity of this brown. I think it's a very nice, dark, intense brown color. When I think of a brown, this is pretty much it. There are also some browns like Gerbin Terre de Feu, or maybe Havana brown from Waterman, which I have, there's an Inkcyclopedia entry on that ink too. I think those are a little bit more reddish brown. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people really like that. But I like a darker brown. I'm not sure about this, by the way. The more I think about it, the more I enjoy the Quick Brown Fox, because we already have this stuff here. So, next entry, it'll be the Quick Brown Fox once again. But for now, time for the Tardif test. Okay, I'm grabbing a brush, loading it with water, and we'll see how waterproof that ink is. While we're at it, I'm going to blot this bit for a second. Where do those fingerprints come from? This is... It's not... Is that bleed through? That would make a lot of sense. Otherwise it's a little scary. Mysterious fingerprints. Okay. Eyedropper of death. I had to blot that, otherwise it would just take a long time to dry. There we go. Whoops. I don't want the regular writing to go. Waiting, waiting, waiting. blot, 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 and the big blot. Completely blotto. How are we doing? Well, this is gone. This is still there, but it has suffered. And maybe if I would have left it on a bit longer, it would have been gone completely. So, there you have it. Let us try to work on a scorecard for this ink. I'll just remove something from my desk. There we go, so that I can move the paper. Whoops. I'm wiping the Tardif test on my little anti-oil smearing screen. There we go. Scorecard. Cleaning. Excellent. Never had any problems with this ink. Bleed. Through. We'll have to see about that. Color. A dark brown. Dark brown. That is like Stephen with a twist. Here you go. Shading. Well, I would say shading of this ink is very good. I've really always enjoyed this one for that reason. Flu. Very good. No issues, no real startup issues with this ink, at least not with me. Feathering. I'll check that out with the cheap copying paper. Drying time. I'd say it's good. Dries fairly quickly, even though it is maybe a bit on the wet side. Waterproofness. Shall I write down okay? Because it's, I mean, this is there, this is pretty much gone, so okay at best. Let's turn it into that. Okay, okay at best. Well, as to that shading I was talking about, let's have a look at this. As you can see, in a extremely saturated nib, you would get this very, very dark brown. It's a bit more auburn, I guess, in a less saturated nib. But in all three, I think you see some nice shading. I'm not sure how well my camera picks it up, but there is definitely lighter bits and darker bits. And that's why I like the ink so much. Okay. Cheap copier paper. A bit of fine writing. Let's start with that. Where's my... Here we go. The anti-oil smearing screen. Let's start up with that bloody fox again. Quick bloody fox. Did that nib sound scratchy at all to you? It's okay. It's quite okay. Et maintenant, medium. The broad nib. The quick. Tack. and then I want some flex. Note how the feed keeps up very well here, so the ink seems to be compatible with flex nibs. Hey, flexy lady! That makes no sense to you? Check out Oppa Gangnam Style. And maybe we should have us some big lettering. Little mistake. And now the wonderful G. The G is one of my favorite letters of the foundational script because it's just so awesome. I always make it a little bigger than it's supposed to be because I love that flourish. Alright. Assessment time. Still, even on cheap paper, have a look at the broad nib. Nice bit of shading, lighter and darker. It's not extreme, but it's pronounced. It's no Apache Sunset, it's no Lit d'été, but it's a very nice shading, I think. And nice and subdued. What I like about that is that you could use this for, I guess, you know, business paper, stuff you need to sign. It wouldn't look too flashy, and yet it's not a boring blue. So that's good. What about feathering? Well, there is some. You see in these bits where there's really... let's use the Tardif instrument. These bits where there's a lot of ink, you can actually see there is some feathering going on. However, with this 6mm nib, I don't really see any feathering. So I would say feathering is quite good. It's just that flex nibs on cheap paper will give you some feathering, but it's... I mean, I'm yet to see the ink that doesn't do that. The only ink I know of is Nudeless Anti-Feather. Is that in this pen? No, it's in this pen. This is the most amazing... It's just... I'm getting sidetracked here. But maybe I should do a separate Inkcyclopedia on this ink. This ink does not feather. You can take some tissue. It will not feather. It will feather. I mean, you see that? That is no feathering. It's just when you drop inks on top of it that it will start to do stuff. Whereas I use this ink, it feathers like crazy. So maybe Nudeless X Feather, Anti-Feather should be the next ink for the Inkcyclopedia. Having said this, we have now concluded this. What about bleed through? Well, there is some, again with the flex. Bloody flex, always the same. It's a little bit there with the really wide nib. With the regular writing, the sheet is almost clean. There may be a little bit of it here and there, but I wouldn't call that particularly annoying. So I would say that bleed through is good. That means there is not a whole lot of bleed through, and feathering is good. Now, what about comparing this ink to another ink? I don't have a whole lot of browns. As I said, I already talked about Terre de Feu. I talked about, what's the other one? Havana Brown. But we were talking about Montblanc. I'm not going to, okay. I am going to write down the full name. And I'm not going to use flex for the last word, just to give you an idea. Brown, this is the color we have been talking about for a long time now. What if we would compare that to, say, I need to put some more ink in the feet there. There we go. G. Herbin. café. Des îles. It's a little lighter, as you can see, but I think this is also a very nice brown. You can see the difference quite pronounced right there. But if you look at this flex writing, I think you'll see that the difference is not huge. This too is a very brown, not a reddish brown, I would say, although it is a little more red than that one. But maybe that's useful if you want an alternative. That's all there's to it. So here you have it. Inkcyclopedia entry from Montblanc Toffee Brown. I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later in the new year. Bye bye!